Sometimes, a new beginning isn't a gift, it's a test. From Amber's journal. When Amber tore open the envelope marked confidential, offer enclosed, she had no idea that this plain white piece of paper was about to flip her entire life upside down. Her coffee cup was still warm on the kitchen table, but her mind was already spinning in 100 directions. "Kevin," she called softly, still holding the letter. "They're offering us jobs, both of us, in New Arlington." He stepped out of the bedroom with his laptop in hand. The ultimate engineer vibe. Exhausted eyes, MIT alumni t-shirt, and a brain that probably never shut off. He was pushing 40, but looked 35. Tall, fit, with that effortless American charm that seemed baked into his DNA. For real? His face lit up like someone flipped a switch. "That's what, 2 hours from Chicago? Who's even hiring us there? I sent in my resume last month, and you, remember, you submitted a request through their engineering portal. They want us both." She turned the letter around. It says, "We're interested in your profiles and would like to extend offers to join our headquarters." He grabbed the paper, eyes scanning it fast. You could watch his face go from surprised to stoked in seconds. "Babe, do you realize what this means? This is our shot. You're an economist, I'm an engineer. We've been stuck in neutral in this town for years. Your salary hasn't budged since 2021, and my job? I'm basically a human circuit diagram. But there, everything could be different." Amber nodded, but her eyes didn't match his excitement. That gut feeling, women's intuition, whatever you want to call it, kicked in hard. Something felt off. Not wrong, just off. "This is all moving so fast. Why us? Why now?" "Because we're the best," Kevin said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "I told you we'd make it." A month later, they were pulling up to New Arlington. The place looked like it was ripped straight from the cover of Architectural Digest. Sleek glass skyscrapers reached up like they were signing the sky. "Welcome to ambition." "Wow," Amber whispered, staring up at the skyline. "This is nothing like Springfield." Their new office was in the heart of the business district, surrounded by glitzy towers. The company, Synertech Logistics, had a full suite on the 23rd floor. Most of their other operations were stashed in some industrial park outside city limits. When they walked into the lobby, a sharply dressed assistant in charcoal gray was already waiting. He didn't say a word, just motioned toward the elevator. As they rode up in the mirrored cab, the air felt thick with possibility, and something else Amber couldn't name. On the 23rd floor, a woman in her mid-30s was waiting. Flawless hair, razor-sharp cheekbones, and eyes that scanned people like X-rays. Amber's heart skipped a beat. "Jenna?" she blurted. The woman barely raised an eyebrow. "Mrs. Fraser, here we keep things strictly professional. We used to live in the same building on Willow Street. You were?" "That's not relevant." The woman cut her off with a polite, icy smile, like she was erasing personal history with a pencil. "Let's keep the stairwell memories out of the workplace. You're both employees now. Welcome to the team." Kevin didn't catch the coldness in her voice. He was beaming. This was his element. "I'm ready to start tomorrow. Hell, I'll start today." "Perfect. Mr. Fraser, your office is on the 22nd floor. I think you'll like the view. Mrs. Fraser, come with me. I'll have the assistant show you to your workspace." But Amber already felt the chill, and it wasn't from the AC. When they brought her down, not up, down, and opened the door to what looked like a storage room in the basement, she actually thought it had to be a mistake. The office was dim, the walls were gray, and the only window looked out onto an alleyway with dumpsters and janitor carts. A dusty monitor sat on a cluttered desk, surrounded by piles of paper and the faint smell of mildew. "This is where I'll be working?" she asked carefully. The assistant didn't even look up from her tablet. "It's temporary. Everyone starts here. The director said you'll manage just fine." Meanwhile, Kevin was riding up to a bright panoramic office with an espresso machine, a brand new MacBook Pro, and sunlight pouring in like validation. Then a day passed, then a week, then a month. Amber was grinding, no overtime pay, calculating logistics by hand, stuck with outdated equipment, and catching Jenna's laser-focused stare more and more often. Kevin, on the other hand, he was flying. Literally and figuratively. He got compliments, promotions, started wearing Hugo Boss suits. His cologne lingered in their bedroom longer than he did. And more, his eyes drifted right through her, like she was invisible. But she held on. For now, a whole year had passed. 7 days a week, from morning till late, Amber Fraser dragged herself into that same dingy basement office, where the lamp flickered every time she turned on the ancient desktop, and the musty smell in the carpet had long become part of the air she breathed. The paperwork piled up faster than she could ever catch up. No intern, no assistant, just her, and the drowning mess of logistics. Every day started the same. Cheap coffee brewed in a plastic machine she brought from home, a cracked window she opened for a gasp of fresh air, only to get smacked in the face with the stink from the company's loading yard. Then she'd boot up the wheezing monitor, sounding like it had a hangover, and begin the endless grind of punching in data, checking delivery routes, calculating discrepancies between orders and shipments. It was way beneath her qualifications. Honestly, it was beneath her dignity. But she kept quiet, because that's just how things are done around here, as Jenna had said on her first day. And the contrast with Kevin's life? It only got more brutal with time. He came home late. Sometimes he didn't come home at all, claiming last-minute meetings or sudden business trips. He was out whining and dining clients, signing deals, rubbing elbows with investors and architects. People clapped him on the back in the office. His reputation? Skyrocketing like a tech stock in the middle of a bull market. He didn't smell like morning coffee anymore. He smelled like designer cologne, expensive hair gel, and new leather briefcases. He had new habits, adjusting his cufflinks, checking his reflection in windows, glancing at his phone like he was waiting for the president to call. One evening, he came home, dropped his keys on the table without even looking up, completely oblivious to Amber sitting right there. "You didn't even ask how my day was," she said quietly. He looked at her. "Sorry, I'm just beat. Long day. We're rolling out a new ERP system." "At least you have a system," she muttered under her breath, loud enough for him to catch. He didn't respond. Spring rolled in with sticky air, wet pavement, and that creeping feeling that life was just passing her by. One especially rough night, Amber stayed at the office late. She couldn't stomach the thought of going back to that apartment. No dinner, no conversation, not even the most basic kind of care. Exhausted and starving, she decided to give herself a break for once. A real one. Eat out, like Kevin did almost every night now. She walked through the city with no real plan until she found herself outside Valentina's, that fancy downtown spot with red leather booths and soft lighting. The kind of place they used to dream about back when they were just those middle-class kids. And then she saw it, through the giant window. At first, just the back of his head, that familiar, freshly shaved neck. Perfectly styled hair. He was turned slightly to the side. Across from him, a woman in a black dress. Elegant, wine glass in hand, smiling, listening. It was Jenna. Amber froze, like she'd slammed into an invisible wall. The world just stopped for a second. Then her heart kicked into overdrive, pounding so loud it drowned out the street noise. Rage started in her gut, rolled up her chest, and flushed her face like fire. Seconds later, she was walking through the glass doors. Calm, steady. Kevin looked up and went pale. His wine glass twitched in his hand. Jenna didn't flinch, not even a blink. She just raised her chin slightly and looked at Amber like she was a late waiter. "What the hell is going on here?" Amber asked, eyes locked on her husband. Kevin didn't answer. Jenna paused for a beat, then said slowly and clearly, "We're all adults here, Amber. I think we're mature enough to handle this without the dramatics." That line cut deeper than a blade. Cold, clean, precise. But what Amber felt next wasn't heartbreak. It wasn't pity either. It was freedom. She didn't scream, didn't cry. She just turned and walked away without another word. That night, she packed her bags. One suitcase, her laptop, an old notebook, a few photos. She left a note on the table. "I'm leaving. Don't look for me. Don't explain. Just live your life, the way you clearly want to, without me." By morning, she was on a bus heading back to Springfield. Her mom, Judy, was waiting at the door. "You lost weight," she said instead of hello. "I got free," Amber answered, and, for the first time in forever, she meant it. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and apples again. Sunlight poured through the curtains. And for the first time in a year, she didn't hear the click of Jenna's heels, didn't feel her judging stare, didn't inhale someone else's perfume off someone else's shoulder. She was herself again. Still a little lost, still a little broken. But somewhere deep inside, a quiet decision had already taken root. No one was ever putting her in the basement again. Amber started waking up early. Her body still hadn't caught on that life had changed. It kept bracing for a blaring alarm, pitch-black skies outside the window, and that city chaos of rushing off to work. But now, her mornings began with the smell of fresh coffee drifting in from her mom's kitchen and soft sunlight slipping through old blinds. Photos from her childhood lined the walls. In the corner sat a dusty cabinet full of porcelain figurines Judy had collected over the past 30 years. Amber lay there, staring at the ceiling. What now? Who was she without Kevin, without the new job, without the glossy resume and shiny corporate ID badges? The old Amber was stubborn. The new one? Burned out. But something inside her was still flickering, like a weak flame trying to stay lit under wet firewood. A few days after she'd come back, Judy took her to a small local office, a logistics center, looking for a part-time financial assistant. No glass offices, no fancy elevators, no pretense. Just a warehouse, a couple of computers, and real grounded work. "We can offer $18 an hour," said Walter, the gray-haired manager. "Not exactly corporate perks, but hey, at least here you won't drown in paperwork or rot in a basement." He smirked, like he knew. Amber took the job. She was back with numbers again. Slowly her brain started waking up. She fixed reports, called vendors, adjusted budgets, and weirdly enough, something inside her whispered, "You still got it. You're not done." After her first paycheck, even if it wasn't much, she rented a small apartment near work. Tiny place, white walls, an old fridge that hummed, and floors that creaked when she walked. But it was hers. For the first time in months, she ran a hot bath, closed her eyes, and didn't think about Kevin or Jenna. Just steam, silence, and her own space. On weekends, she walked around Springfield like she was rediscovering it. She stopped by the local bookstore, the same one she used to buy accounting textbooks from. Picked up a new notebook, a pen, and a logistics guide. That's where it all started. Evenings, she'd sit at the kitchen table, open her laptop, and dive in. Transport routes, warehouse management, supply chain optimization. Sound boring? Maybe. But to Amber it felt like building a map to freedom. Her freedom. She signed up for an online course from the University of Minnesota, Logistics and Supply Chain Management. At first, she was intimidated. The business lingo felt foreign. But a few lectures in, she realized this was her element. Structure, logic, systems. It wasn't about Kevin or Jenna or that job that tried to break her. It was about Amber, the real her. A couple months in, she spotted a mess in the company's accounting department. Duplicate orders, expired contracts, outdated spreadsheets. She walked up to Walter and said, "Your logistics setup looks like it belongs in a museum. Dusty and not working. Mind if I take a stab at cleaning it up?" He chuckled. "Sure. If you're not afraid to get lost in the archives, knock yourself out." 2 weeks later, she brought him a report. Organized tables, charts, real data, and clear cost-saving suggestions. Walter whistled. "Damn, girl. You've got a brain like GPS, precise and always on point. How'd you feel about running the whole department?" And just like that, her real journey began. More tasks, more challenges, more online courses. 6 months in, a local brand reached out to partner. Then came her first round of small investments. Amber still couldn't believe it was all real. Soon she launched her own small business, reselling apparel from a niche brand. But it wasn't about fashion. It was about logistics. Fast delivery, accuracy, customer-first attitude. She had a website, loyal clients, her own rhythm, and most importantly, her own voice. She no longer waited for someone to validate her worth, no more proving herself to a man who didn't see her. She wasn't living to please anyone anymore. She was building something of her own. Some nights, she'd sit by the window with a glass of wine and watch the streetlights glow. Quiet Springfield, a few cars passing by, the distant hum of life. Her little business wasn't some empire, not yet, but it was hers, and no Jenna in the world could take it from her. Amber would smile, and in those moments she knew she wasn't just getting her life back, she was building a new one. It had been exactly 1 year since Amber packed her suitcase and walked away. Not once had she looked back. Everything she thought was the end turned out to be the beginning. That tiny office she started in? Now it was a full-on network. 3 locations spread across the county. 1 warehouse, 2 couriers, a freelance accountant, and a college intern who handled the socials and website. The brand she worked with wasn't big-name stuff. It was niche, clean, minimalist fashion for folks who were done with fast fashion. Quality fabrics, small batches, no BS marketing, and Amber? She talked to customers directly, messaged each one, answered every question. She wasn't just selling clothes, she was creating an experience. Then one day in March, she got an email from a local business magazine. The editor, a young woman named Lauren, wanted to do an interview. "We're spotlighting inspiring women in Springfield who built something from scratch. Your story is exactly what our readers need." A week later, the article went live. Amber Matthews, from rock bottom to building her own brand. The photo showed Amber in a light button-down shirt standing in front of shelves of shipping boxes, her laptop open. Her smile was calm, but her eyes on fire. Meanwhile, Kevin was sitting in his almost empty office. Once it felt big and bright. Now it was just cold, like a concrete bunker. After that final conversation with Jenna, the one where she looked him dead in the eye and said, "You were a project, an experiment, we're done." He hadn't slept since. He tried texting her, sending flowers, emails, nothing. Silence. A week later, HR called him in. Jenna had personally signed off on his termination. Official reason? Department restructuring. But everyone knew it was political. He was disposable. His coworkers stopped talking to him. No drama, no scenes, just silence. Like he didn't exist, like he was already gone. He tried applying to other companies, but his reputation followed him, especially in a town where everyone knew he'd been Jenna's golden boy, and she tossed him out like trash. No respectable company wanted the guy Jenna dumped, so he went back to Springfield, hoping maybe things would be easier there. That's when he saw it. In the window of a local store, a magazine. Amber's face. That article. He grabbed a copy, paid, and sat in his car reading like a man possessed. "I thought I was broken, but really, I was just in the wrong environment. Leaving was the first time in forever that I actually started to hear myself again. This isn't about revenge, it's about choosing myself." Kevin shut the magazine. His throat tightened. He remembered the way Amber used to walk around with that blank stare, stuck in that basement office, wearing the same blazer for weeks, and how he ignored it, how he praised Jenna, forgot dinner, let Amber rot in silence while he soaked up compliments and espresso from an $800 machine. He dialed her number. His heart was pounding. "Hello?" Her voice was calm, steady. "Hey, it's me, Kevin." A pause. "What do you want?" I saw the article. I get it now. I was blind. It was all a huge mistake. Jenna, she broke me, and you? I always loved you, Amber. Always." He hoped she'd say she missed him too, that her voice would crack, that maybe there was still a chance, that he could come back. But instead, she said softly, "I don't talk to traitors anymore." Goodbye, Kevin." Click, dial tone. He sat in his car for another hour, then opened the magazine again. That photo, she looked better than he'd ever remembered. Confident, light, free. He didn't just lose a wife. He lost the one person who believed in him when he was still a nobody. And Amber? She was standing in her warehouse, helping pack up an order for a new customer in Austin. She had no idea Kevin had called, and honestly, she hadn't thought about him in ages. On her desk was a plan. Her fourth location, in Chicago. The logistics were locked in. Suppliers vetted, everything moving like clockwork. She threw on her jacket, smiled at her assistant, and headed home. The air outside smelled like spring and freedom. 6 months had passed since Amber Matthews' name began resonating beyond her hometown of Springfield. What started as a modest clothing brand in a rented office had blossomed into a thriving enterprise with 5 locations, including a new branch in Chicago. Her journey was spotlighted in Forbes Locals feature, Women Who Built Businesses from Scratch, and a TikTok video where she shared her story of leaving her husband to start her own business garnered nearly 2 million views. The comments were filled with support and admiration. "This is the kind of strength I aspire to. Thank you, Amber. Because of you, I left a toxic relationship." A voice for our generation. Despite the attention, Amber remained grounded. She continued to personally select fabrics, meet with suppliers, and oversee marketing. Her days began with coffee, a walk with her Labrador, Felix, and a task list. Evenings were reserved for reading and calls with her mom. One evening, while checking her email, she noticed a message in her other folder. From Kevin Matthews, subject apology. Amber paused. She hadn't heard from Kevin since that last call. Seeing his name stirred unexpected emotions. After a moment, she opened the email. Forbes Australia +8, Entrepreneur +8, Forbes +8. Amber, I understand if you don't want to read this. If you are, thank you. I want to apologize, not for choosing the wrong person, but for betraying someone who believed in me when I was at my lowest. You built something from nothing. I merely took advantage of others' efforts until I fell. I've lost everything, my job, respect, reputation. But most importantly, I lost you. I'm not seeking anything, no second chances, no meetings. I just want you to know that I remember and I'm proud of you. Kevin, Entrepreneur, +1, strictlybusiness.com +1. Amber read the message and closed her laptop. No tears, no pain, just a quiet smile. She didn't respond immediately. After a week of contemplation, she replied, Kevin, thank you for your honesty. I forgive you. But there's no path back into my life. Wishing you well, eh? From that moment, she felt a sense of closure. A month later, Amber was invited to speak at TEDx in Austin. Her talk, titled Second Wind, How Betrayal Sparked My Career, was delivered to an audience of 500, with millions more watching online. I'm Amber. A year ago, I was an economist working in a basement. 5 years ago, I was a wife who felt invisible. Today, I'm an entrepreneur, a leader, and a woman who chose herself. The applause was thunderous. In the back row, a woman in her 60s wiped away a tear. It was her mother, the one who had taken her in after the divorce and reminded her, "You're stronger than you think. Just remember who you are." Amber had done just that. She no longer sought external validation. She understood her worth, the value of love, respect, and her own hard work. And she vowed never to let anyone confine her again, be it in an office or in life.